My name is Brandy Enix from the Office of Admissions. We're excited to have you here at Texas A&M University. Earlier we did this presentation and I had a chance to talk to some folks from North Carolina, so I'm just curious, kind of get a feel of who's here with me today. How many of you are from out of state? Quite a few of you, awesome. How many of you, this is your first trip to Texas A&M ever? Great, well we're excited to have you here. We have a full day of activities for you. And we'll have some folks afterwards who can answer some questions for you about the admissions process, but we'll also answer questions you might have about what's going on for the rest of the day at Aggieland Saturday. So I also want to know, do I have any seniors here today who've already applied? Okay, good, because it's called Calling All Juniors, so it's a little Aggie joke there, make sure I don't have any seniors. So how many are juniors? Okay, awesome. How many sophomores? Okay. Any freshmen? Don't be afraid to raise your hand. All right, good job. Hey, we're glad you're here. It's never too early to start thinking about this process because really, what you do your freshman and sophomore and junior year does impact you, the whole admission process here at Texas A&M. So I'm glad that you're here today. So some quick facts for you about Texas A&M. We were the first institution of higher education in the great state of Texas. In fact, we are a land grant, air grant, and sea grant institution. We are very, very large. For those of you who are visiting for the first time, it may be a little bit of a shock. We have more than 68,000 students. We are the third largest university in the nation. So very big, and I know it's kind of hustling and bustling today, but typically students will say that Texas A&M has a very small campus feel despite how many students are here. This past year, for the 2016-2017 admission cycle, we had about 11,200 students come for their first year as freshmen to Texas A&M. So again, students will still characterize it, regardless of how big it gets, as family and still a very small campus feel. We did give away a lot of financial aid last year. Our parents always like to know this. Are there resources out there to help my students at Texas A&M? And the answer is yes. It is affordable. More than $55 million was given out in financial aid last year. And then also, I wanted to point out our retention rate, our first year retention rate, 97.1. That's a pretty amazing number because statistics have shown that the hardest year for students is typically that first year, especially for those students moving away from home, first time in college, and that 91% retention rate is pretty big because that shows that the students who come to Texas A&M, they're getting connected, they're successful, and they're continuing on to pursue their degree at Texas A&M. Here's some other quick facts for you about Texas A&M. I love this slide because some of it is about us and things that we want you to know about, like our National Merit Scholars, that we have the most in Texas for National Merit Scholars. But some of this other information are things that other people are saying about Texas A&M, like we are #1 for salaries among graduates of Texas public universities. So that means students are getting out and they're getting well-paying jobs, and parents like that too, right? Also, we are #1 for the best colleges that you can actually get into. And so that's what we're going to talk about today, is how to get in to Texas A&M. So there's some required coursework that we have of all of our students. Students are required to have 4 years of English, 4 years of math, and then we expect those to be at least Algebra 1, Geometry, and Algebra 2, and then a 4th year math. Now, because college is going to be challenging, we really would prefer that 4th year math be something that Algebra 2 is a prerequisite for. So whether that be a pre-cal or a stats, challenge yourself with your high school curriculum. Don't go back and take math models because it's an easy A. So just a quick note there for you. We also require 4 years of science. Now, 2 of the 4 have to be a biology one, a chemistry one, or a physics one. And then the other 2 sciences can be really of your choosing. They just have to be a lab-based science, so remember that. We also require 2 years of the same foreign language. And we got some questions earlier. What about computer science? Does computer science count as a foreign language? It does. It does. So you can actually be admitted and meet that requirement with 2 years of computer science in high school. But typically that will not meet the graduation plan at Texas A&M. You may have to take additional foreign language here if you come in with computer science as your foreign language. Sign language is also acceptable for foreign language. For students from Texas high schools, if you graduate under the recommended or distinguished plan, you should have no problem meeting our high school coursework requirements. If you are graduating under the new foundation plan, you will be required to have at least 1 endorsement to meet those minimums to be considered. So those are our minimum coursework requirements to be considered for admission to Texas A&M. Let's talk about your checklist. What does it take to have a complete admission file to the university? Well, the first thing you have to do is apply. So you have to have an application. And we accept both the Apply Texas application, and then last year we started accepting the Coalition application. And so 2 ways for you to apply to Texas A&M. There's no preference, whether it be the Coalition or the Apply Texas application. Just don't fill out both. We have some students who do that. That does not increase your odds of getting in. So pick one or the other and then write the essay that's associated with that. And we only require 1 essay. This is the first year that we've kind of dropped down our requirements for essays, and we're going to require the application and only 1 essay. So on the Apply Texas application, it's Essay A. On the Coalition application, it's Essay 1. And so that information is actually out there for you on our website, as well as the essay prompt. So if you want to get a head start on writing those essays, you are more than welcome to get started on that. There is an application fee. It's $70 for domestic students and $90 for our international students. We also require an official high school transcript with the numerical class rank. So we really use class rank in our admission process. So to be top 10%, it would have to give a number, a numerator and a denominator. Oftentimes counselors will just send a letter that says consider this student in the top 10% or in the top quarter or whatever that is. Just note that we actually have to have a true class rank. It has to say this many students out of this many students to recognize your class rank. Now, if you're from a non-ranking high school, we will assign a class rank. And there's a big misconception out there that we recalculate a GPA and do all that work. We don't do that. What we use is your GPA that you earned in high school and the counselor profile that your counselor will send us from your high school. And that'll basically tell us how your class breaks down, and we'll assign a quartile ranking for you. So first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, or fourth quarter based on that information that we get. If you are homeschooled, we will assign a class rank based on your test scores. So other students who have scored like you on the SAT or ACT will use that to assign a comparable class rank, okay? So it used to be that all homeschooled students were ranked in the top quarter. There was a law passed a couple years ago, and so now we assign a class rank to homeschooled students based on their test scores. And then finally, the last is if you're not a U.S. citizen, but you are a permanent resident, or you have an affidavit of intent for citizenship, we'll also have to have that document to have a complete admission file. And so when I say complete application file or complete admission file, I mean everything has been received. That is when your file is complete. Not everything is in the mail. We get that a lot from students who say, well, it was postmarked by the deadline. It has to actually be received by Texas A&M by the deadline in order to have a complete admission file. And we'll talk about those deadlines in just a couple of seconds. So there are 3 ways to be admitted to Texas A&M University. There are 2 ways to be automatically admitted, and then the third is our holistic review. So we'll take a look at each one of these individually. The first is top 10%. This guarantees admission to our Texas residents who graduate or are in the top 10% of their graduating class at the time of application. Because really you're going to be applying way before you graduate. So it's what's on that transcript at the time that you apply. So if you are the top 10% when you submit your application and all of a sudden you come back from the Christmas break and they re-rank you and you're in the top 11th percentile, don't send that transcript. That's easy. Send the one that says top 10%. Same goes the other way. If you're in the top, let's say you're in the 11th percentile, and this happens a lot, and then all of a sudden you're re-ranked. As long as you're in the top 10% before our deadline, we will re-rank you and automatically admit you, okay? So you have to have that top 10% ranking. You have to have all of your credentials to us by the admissions deadline. And then if you're going to be doing the endorsement plan, this is a little bit different. You do have to graduate with a distinguished level of achievement in order to be automatically admitted through top 10%. Now this is for Texas residents only. And so those students from North Carolina wanted to know, is there a way for me to be automatically admitted? And the answer is yes. And that's through our automatic academic admission. And so here we look for students who rank in the top 25% of their graduating class. And then you have to have some pretty exceptional test scores. So we're looking for the new SAT. It's a combined score of a 1360 with at least a 620 in a math and then a 660 in the evidence-based reading and writing. Or if you take the ACT, it's a composite score of a 30 with a 27 in the math and the English. If you're ranked in the top quarter, you have those test scores and you get all your credentials to us by the admissions deadline, you're going to be automatically admitted to Texas A&M. Now, there is a third way to be admitted to Texas A&M University, and that's through holistic review. And this is really kind of what my team specializes in. Any student who doesn't qualify for automatic admission is holistically reviewed for admission to the university, and it really is holistic. And what I like about it is that we keep academics and the other stuff separate, and we combine them to kind of determine who are the most competitive students. So we do look at your academic achievement and some of the things we just talked about. So we're going to look at your class rank, and your test scores, and do you meet our coursework minimums? And that part goes over here, and then my team reads everything else. In fact, they can't see your test scores. They can't see your class rank. They're looking at what else you have going on. So involvement in extracurricular activities, community service. Did you give back? Did you have volunteer time? Did you have leadership? We love to see leadership. So you're not just a member of a club, but you're actually serving in a leadership role, secretary, treasurer. We like to see a nice progression of that. So maybe by your senior year, you're serving as the president of a club or organization. We also look for students who work. We know that not all students have an opportunity to participate in these extracurricular activities because maybe they're responsible for bringing in some of the income to the family. So their time outside the classroom is spent working. And there's a place to tell us that on the application as well. We really look for a very well-rounded student in our holistic review. We also consider things like hardships, challenges, or unique opportunities. So lots of different ways to distinguish yourself from other students. Now, what I tell students is in the holistic review, since we don't do an actual interview, consider this your interview with Texas A&M. The information that you would tell us, put on that application. Fill out the application completely. Write a very good, solid essay, because that's basically painting the picture for us of who you are. And to kind of give you a feel of how many students are being reviewed right now for admission for the 2018 cycle that will start here in the fall, we scored 27,151 students from holistic review. That is a huge number. And so last year for 2016-2017, the students who started in the fall, about 32% of our freshman class actually came in through our holistic review process. So it is competitive. So I would encourage you to spend some time on your application and some thought in that essay, because again, that's going to be telling us all about you and what makes you unique. How many students in here are interested in engineering? All right, awesome. I'm glad you're here today because we're going to be talking about some special things for engineering. If you were an automatic admit to the university, really any student, regardless if they qualify for top 10% or academic admission, you are going to be holistically reviewed for admission to Texas A&M. So if you're a top 10% student and you want engineering and you fill out that application and you get everything to us, you're going to get a letter that says, hey, congratulations, you've been admitted to Texas A&M University. Now you will compete for a seat in engineering. So it is a competitive process to get that seat in engineering. So those things that we just talked about a couple of seconds ago are very important, even if you're an automatic admit. It's very discouraging to get out there and read an application from a student who's top 10% that doesn't realize that they're going to be reviewed holistically for engineering, and so they've left their application blank. Because they knew they were getting automatically admitted to the university, they didn't realize that they would be reviewed for engineering, and now they stand no chance of getting that major. And so those students might have to choose another major or a different pathway to Texas A&M. So something that's also unique about engineering is that there is an early action deadline. Engineering is the only college that has this. And so if you apply to Texas A&M and you have a complete admission file by October 15th, we will guarantee you some type of decision by mid-December. Now that decision could be admit, or it could be we're going to defer your admission to our January timeline. So we would either admit you by October 15th, by mid-December, or we'd say we're going to defer you to a little bit later until we get all of our applications scored. As long as you're complete by our admission deadline of December 1st, we will have a decision to all engineering students by mid-January. Now this year is the exception. We had lots of natural disasters out there, and we found that many of our students were being impacted by that. So we actually extended our deadline by a month, and so that's actually pushed back some of our decisions for our students this year. But next year, fingers crossed, everything will be back on track. So I did mention that we can admit all students to Texas A&M, so there are alternative pathways for students to get here. And so that's our program for system admission, our blend team program, and then just recently opened is our higher education center at McAllen. And so students could be offered admission to Texas A&M through one of these pathways. And so our program for system admission is where we would say we can't offer you admission to Texas A&M at this time, but how about going to one of our system schools? There are lots of Texas A&M system schools across the state of Texas, from Texas A&M Texarkana to Tarleton State University to Texas A&M International, Texas A&M Kingsville, Texas A&M Corpus Christi, Prairie View A&M University, lots of options out there. And so students have the opportunity to go to one of our system schools, complete 1 year of coursework, and then we guarantee their admission back into a major at Texas A&M. The only kicker about the program for system admission is that not all majors participate in that program. So business does not participate, and then not all majors within the College of Engineering participate in that program. But there are more than 80 majors to choose from, and so if this is an offer that you're presented, please talk to our counselors and we'll walk you through that process and the coursework it's going to take to get you to Texas A&M within a year. The other pathway is through our Blend Team program. How many of you are familiar with Blend College? Okay, great. I actually went to Blend College and was a transfer student to Texas A&M years and years ago. So this program is a co-enrollment program for our students here at Texas A&M and Blend College. So if you're offered team, you take classes at Blend College and you take classes at Texas A&M at the exact same time. You can live on campus, you can get a sports pass, you can rush a sorority or a fraternity. The only thing you can't do is play the NCAA sports. Otherwise, you have all the rights and privileges of a full-time student at Texas A&M, although you're only going part-time. And the benefit to this is it allows us to admit more very competitive students to the university, even though we're restricted on space on main campus. So it basically frees up some seats for us, and it's about a third the cost of going to Texas A&M full-time. So there is a cost benefit to that Blend College or that Blend Team offer. So that's something to be considered. Again, if you get that option, please talk to our counselors and we'll talk to you about the pathway. The program is outlined to be 2 years to guarantee your admission into a specific major, but now students who do that program, typically most of them are eligible to do a change of curriculum after 1 year. So don't let that 2-year number in there throw you off. Most students will be at the university within a year. And then most recently, we will be opening our higher education center in Aggieland. It's going to be available for students this coming fall, and it's really geared at students and serving the needs of the population there in the Rio Grande Valley. It is, there are several different majors that are there, so students who are interested in biomedical sciences or public health or majors within the College of Ag or majors within the College of Engineering. That is another pathway back to Texas A&M to start in Aggieland there for 1 year to 2 years and then transfer back to main campus. So when should you be applying? Juniors, take note. The application will be available for you July 1st. So the summer before you even start your senior year is when you can start applying to Texas A&M, which is why I mentioned earlier that transcript at the end of your junior year is really what we use for your class rank. And I would recommend that you get a copy of that if it's available to you at the end of your junior year to use for the application process. And the reason I say that is oftentimes we see students who have a great class rank, they're right there in the top 10%, and then they start their senior year. They've done nothing different, but students will drop out of their class, and now they're ranked in the top 12%. Everything has stayed the same, but their class size has gotten smaller, and it's impacted their class rank. So just be aware of that. You can apply using your transcript at the end of your junior year. All credentials must be received by December 1st, and that is a receive date in our hand, not a postmark date. Anybody want to take a guess at how many students applied on deadline last year or this year? 100,000? No, that was a good guess. 11,000 students applied within 4 days of our admission deadline. And so that's not a good strategy. And I say that because if you're applying late, you don't have access to check to see if everything else is here. And so a lot of those students never complete their admission file and are never considered for admission because their file is incomplete, their transcript didn't get here, their test scores didn't get here. And so don't be that student is my message to you. We do say apply early, and parents want to know, what does that mean? Should they be applying July 1st? Because I'll keep them home that day. And no, it doesn't mean you have to apply July 1st. We're saying September, early October, you should be working to have that application submitted. Spend some time on that essay, fill out the application completely, and set a personal goal of mid-September to early October. Should be a good time to get everything in, because that then allows you to check your status and make sure that everything is to us by December 1st. So let's say you get everything into us. When can you expect to hear back? So top 10% in academic admit, so students who qualify for automatic admission, once your admission file is complete and we've processed everything, you will receive your letter for admission. Now, in the past, students do apply early July, they get everything to us, and we could admit them in August, but we do not offer any seats of admission or any offers of admission until school has started. So typically in mid-September is when our first round of decisions will go out for students who get admitted to the university. Students who are in our holistic review process, we'll work on those throughout the year. This year, with the extension of our deadline, we're still working on our review admits, and so we hope to have everything complete by March 1st. In the past, we were able to have everything done by Aggieland Saturday, but again, with the extension of our deadline, it's delayed decisions for this year. But again, next year, we should be back on track to have everybody a decision by that March 1st deadline. And then I mentioned to you about tracking your application status. Do that, check it often, and that's through our Applicant Information System, or AIS. And once you apply is when you have access to see the credentials that we've received and see which credentials we have not. It'll also be the first place that you're notified of your admission decision to Texas A&M. This kind of gives you a feel for what last year's freshman class looked like. Like I said earlier, we're still making decisions for this year's freshman class, but you can see that we had more than 40,000 applications to Texas A&M. It breaks it down for you by our top 10% admits, our academic admits, and our students from review. It also shows you students who are admitted through other pathways, and then a pretty large number admitted through our program for system of admission. Again, if you receive one of those alternative pathways, talk to our counselors and let us help you get to Texas A&M as quickly as possible. And then that number at the top, that's always a heartbreaker. More than 7,000 students were either denied or did not complete their admission application. So again, why it's important to apply early and check your status often. So what can you be doing right now? Juniors, this is your homework assignment. And really, sophomores and freshmen, it's not too early to start thinking about some of these things as well. Take the PSAT. That's available to you out there. See how you do. The new SAT is fantastic. Khan Academy has offered some test prep out there, and so if you sit down and take the SAT test prep today, it would be reflective of what you would score if you were to actually take the SAT. So that's a great practice test. It actually tells you areas that you might need to improve upon. So I would encourage you to do that. You've taken the next step, which is visiting campus. We're glad that you're here today. You're going to tell us about that on the application itself. Also, keep an activity log. This is a pretty big one. When I talk to you about holistic review and keeping track of the things that you do and using that as your interview, start writing that down. That is your homework assignment, juniors. Write down, what did I do my freshman year? It's really the summer between your 8th grade and freshman year in high school, all the way until you apply. What activities are you involved in? Where did you spend your time? What did you do in the summer? Did you work a job? Start working on that activity log right now so that when it comes time to filling out the application, you'll be a step ahead, and that'll be a much smoother process for you. For your senior year, those who are about to be seniors, be ready to apply. Make sure that you have everything ready to go when that application opens. Ask your questions. Get answers to your questions in the summer before you apply so that there are no hiccups throughout the application process. Testing. Students always want to know about the SAT and ACT. Is it better to take one over the other? And the answer is there is no preference for us. But some students do better on one test than the other. So if you have the opportunity, I would encourage you to take both tests. We will only use the highest score, and we will never penalize you for a lower test score. We know that students have a bad day, and they may go in the next time they take the test and they may be ill. So when it comes time to reviewing your application, we will only use the highest test score on file. The one thing that we don't do is super score, though. So we can't use the highest math from one and the highest English from the other. It's the highest test score from one test date. So just remember that. And again, everything has to be received to us by that December 1st deadline. So I know I have a lot of out-of-state students here. I'm very excited about that. For those of you in Texas, we have regional prospective students all over the state of Texas, but we also have some regional advisors out there for you out of state. And so this gives you a good feel for where we have representatives who can answer your questions. You are always welcome to call main campus, either our customer service line or to our prospective student center, and we will help you in any way that we can. And with that, I'm going to say thanks and gig 'em.